Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to this session today on the new features of Mahara 24.04 that we are still going to be releasing this week. I'm Kristina Hoeppner, and I look forward to showing you some of the highlights of this new version that we are releasing in April 2024. As usual, the Mahara development would not have been possible without the support of many organizations. And here you see organizations listed that have contributed features through direct funding, or they adjusted features. And so we are very grateful for their input, because that does give us also the opportunity to engage with them and also to see how portfolios are being used. So many thanks to everybody here. And of course, also lots of thanks to all active subscribers of Mahara, because your direct subscriptions allow us to continue working on Mahara, continue providing the software to you with maintenance releases and also new version releases, and making it possible that we can have releases such as this and also continue to work on it. And also a big thanks goes to all the contributors who are providing ideas, sending through issue reports, or also translating Mahara or working on Mahara in other capacities. So today's webinar is all about some of the new features. We have a lot of new features in Mahara 2404 again, and so I'd like to concentrate on some of the bigger ones that might be of interest to many of you. Please do feel free to ask questions in between, or we will also have time then at the end. So let's jump right in. So the first feature that I'd like to share is one that we've developed for AP Hogeschool Antwerpen in Belgium. And they wanted to expand smart evidence. Smart evidence has been in Mahara for quite a while now, but we haven't really seen lots of big development work in it. And so it was really exciting to partner with that university in order to bring some new functionality to Mahara. And so what you can do with that is, when you are on or you can create a smart evidence collection, and we are calling the framework version 2 because it has some really nice additional features in it. And so what is happening there is that instead of just having one assessment, you can have multiple assessors for a collection. So you can have a mentor assessing the portfolio, you can have 1 or 2 or even 3 teachers assessing it, and also the student could do a self-assessment. And here you see the Smart Evidence Framework already filled in for some of them. And you also see that there's a new status icon that you wouldn't have seen before if you've been using Smart Evidence. And that is the one of merit. So now we have 4 assessment statuses that assessors can choose from. And as usual, the language can be adjusted to what you would like to have. So you can also work in different languages, and you can also adjust who should be able to make an assessment. So that you could say, if it's a teacher assessment, only people with a teacher role will be able to perform that assessment. So just to quickly demonstrate that to you, the idea of mapping a portfolio page to competency standards is still the same, so that you add an annotation. And then you see all the icons for ready for assessment of how many assessments can be had on this particular smart evidence collection. And so to double check who has access, I can go to manage sharing and see that I had already given Petra and James access to my portfolio, and they both have a teacher role. So let me log in as one of them. And since I didn't make any changes, I can just go out. I see that Paula had shared her portfolio with me, and I see the assessment status is there for ready for assessment and can click them. And I also now see which assessors are available, and I can only make an assessment as teacher 2. So I see the annotation and then can do my assessment, meets the standard, partially meets it. And as usual, this language can be fully adjusted to what you want it to be. Click Save, and then my status is saved. Now, all the other assessors can now also go in and make their own assessment. So let's take a look at what that looks like for James. So he also has access to Paula's portfolio. And there he sees that teacher 2 has put in partially meets the standard. Now when James clicks the icons for ready for assessment, he sees that he is teacher 1 and therefore can make his assessment. And he also always sees the status of the other assessments. In this case, the standard hasn't been set up for self-assessment, but that is a very easy change that you can make. Now James can provide his assessment, and then that is visible to all the others. So these 2 new features are really fantastic to explore, and I hope you'll have the chance to do so very soon. And give us feedback how you are using that functionality yourself. Now, another big feature that we've implemented thanks to funding from a number of organizations here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, is that we were able to put the CPD plugin into Mahara Core. That is the Continuing Professional Development plugin, which has existed for quite a number of years. It was based on the plans functionality originally, with the addition that you can see the number of hours that have been spent on a particular activity. And so, because that is a plugin that we use quite extensively on our Mahara sites, and we've essentially been maintaining it for the last few years, it was good to bring it into Core, give it an update so that it also takes advantage of all the new features that we've put in terms of editing, editing CPD activities directly from a portfolio page in order to make that available to everybody. So here on the CPD activities overview page, you see a running list of all the activities that I've participated in. And there is, in contrast to plans, there is no possibility to put that into folders. That was actually causing quite a bit of a problem for the organizations using it in the past, because they would have liked to move an activity from one folder into a next, and that wasn't possible. So we've decided to work more with start dates and also tags in order to really differentiate between which activities should be displayed on which portfolio page. So let me show you what I mean by that. So if you're creating a new activity, as usual, we can give it a title, and then also a location. So since that was a webinar, let's call it online. Give it a start date. And the end date is optional. It can be the same as the start date, but really important is the start date there. And then I can write a short description that is then also displayed. Now, in this case, with the CPD, I really encourage everybody to work with tags, because tags make it then possible, besides the date, to mix and match which CPD activities you'd like to display on screen in a particular portfolio. So therefore, I think it is really important to work with these tags so that you can then later on select them more easily. So that was in our webinar, but we actually spent more time on it, so altogether 1.5 hours. Save that activity, and it is being displayed directly here, 1.5 hours. So we've got that in our list of activities. And if I go to a portfolio and want to add that, I had already prepared something earlier for you. So here we have CPD activities from 2024. So there I decided to display activities tagged with EdTech tool. So there we see 4 displayed now. If I add the tag AI, then we only see 1. And that is how you can change which activities are being displayed, being very flexible in that part. Now, the nice thing is that you don't have to go back into the main menu, going into CPD in order to add activities, but you can do that directly here from the edit screen by clicking the edit button or the plus button to add a new activity. So that, and you are being taken into that activity, and when you make any changes, then you are also being taken back directly to your portfolio page. Additionally, you can also make changes in the details mode so that you don't have to go into full edit mode, where you can move blocks around, accidentally, potentially delete them and things like that. But in details mode, you can just focus on the content creation or content editing and have the add activity available, and also being able to edit or delete activities. You can also in general change the configuration of the block directly here. So using the details mode has become quite crucial for our nurses here in Aotearoa, because they work extensively with templates. So the templates are created regularly in edit mode, but then the nurses just need to go into the display of their portfolio, turn on details mode, and work on their content without seeing all of the editing possibilities and being able to move things around. So that makes it much, much faster. So these were 2 huge changes that we have made for the portfolio in the areas of portfolio creation and also an engagement collaboration. Now let me show you a few more of the fascinating features that we have put in, which are adding also value to the portfolio creation process primarily, but also in using the site and having some administrative features. So if I now go back into my portfolio and I want to add another block to my page, I now have the recent content types available. So as site administrator, I can decide which content types in which order I want to display the content types here, where you have the Show More button. However, that might not really be the ones that I personally use much. Therefore, we now have the recent content types section available, which focuses on the content types that you've used most recently. Because we assume that those might also be the ones you'd like to use again, therefore giving you very quick access to your most likely used content types to get to them very quickly. And another item is that, for example, here I have a reflective summary, and I want to write something different. I'm just writing text, But then I realized, oh, I shouldn't actually have deleted that text. That was the wrong text that I deleted. So in the past, there was no possibility of getting it back except for going to a backup and hoping that you hadn't added the text on right before deleting it. But now you can retrieve one version back. By clicking the restore button, you see what had been in the text field before and can then restore that if you like. By restoring a backup, it completely replaces what is currently seen in the text block. Therefore, do be careful if there are certain things that you do want to keep from the new text. But restore backup, and my backup is there nicely again, without me having to contact an administrator. I already mentioned that we here in New Zealand work quite extensively with templates. And so one possibility with templates, often you need the same block and just make some small adjustments, either say to the instructions or to pre-populated text in the template. And so one of the new functionalities that we put in could come in handy there. And that is the allowing of copying of blocks. For the time being, we've implemented that as a config PHP setting so that an administrator with server access can put that line into the config file. And by doing that, we reload the page. We now have a new icon available that allows us to make a copy. So I can click that and a new copy of the same block is created. So we've implemented this functionality as a config PHP setting because we did not want to activate it automatically, since it is quite easy to make copies. And if you have turned off that people can directly also delete blocks, then that might be adding to their portfolio and also adding to your support if people accidentally create too many copies and then don't know how to remove them. Therefore, it needs to be a conscious decision on behalf of your site administrator to decide whether you want to work with that functionality or not. That also gives us the opportunity to gather feedback from you and learn whether that is a useful functionality to have, or whether there should be more restrictions, for example, that it's only available on templates, or that it is a setting that every portfolio author can decide on in their account, or anything like that. So we would very much like to get that feedback from you in order to decide what the next phase of that functionality could be. So if I wanted to turn that off again, I just go into my config file and make that change. And then it is gone again from the page. Okay, there is another portfolio creation feature that I would like to show you, and that is the integration of a reflection bot. Over the last year and a half, so really since November 2022 or early December 2022, generative AI has been and everybody has been, or lots of people have been exploring generative AI because it has gotten much easier to use. And so, of course, also for portfolio practice, we are looking into, well, what would be good possibilities for us to integrate artificial intelligence in portfolio practice. There are a number of projects that are running. I know of two in Germany that are also connected with Mahara because those organizations use Mahara. So we are, of course, watching those very closely and look forward to hearing what the feedback is there and how they are making use of AI. It is very much around the assessment and evaluation of portfolios. One other route that can be taken is to support reflective practice. And that is where RIF comes in. That is a reflection bot created by Letizia Pretos Cavagnaro at Stanford's D School, the design school, Hoeppner Institute of Design. And in contrast to all the other chatbots that many of us have been using in one way or another, even if it is just to play with, RIF does not give you answers. RIF asks questions in order to help learners reflect. So as a teacher, you would set an initial question and then learners can respond to that. And you can set up, of course, many different bots in order to elicit different types of questions. You can give context to it, and then it takes students through reflective practice by utilizing the what, so what, now what framework, so that you as teacher do not have to teach the bot how to respond, but that entire research, that reflective practice research, is built into the reflection bot itself. And so what we have enabled in Mahara is that you can embed the RIF into your page. So it is a very lightweight integration. So if you have access to RIF in the beta version, you can just put the URL to your chatbot into a page and send that page to the students, for example, as in a template, so that they have it directly, that they can directly reflect on the page where they are working on. But we are not saving any data in Mahara. It is really just the iframe, the display of it. All the data is saved with RIF. Also, if you want to have a summary sent, that is sent via email. So at the moment, we are not integrating it heavily because, again, like with other functionality, we'd first like to know, is that something useful you'd like to have available in Mahara? Is that something where we should be looking into tighter integration? And of course, especially when we are looking at artificial intelligence, we do need to be particularly aware of all privacy statements. Where does the data go? Who has access to the data? So before using it, please do consult all the policies and maybe also consult your legal counsel at your institution to see if you can experiment with it, if it is okay to put student data through. But what you would do is that the student responds to the initial question, and the teacher can set that question themselves. So you can be very specific or you can be general, depending on whether you want to set up only one reflection bot or multiple. And then I can send my response back, and I receive another question, often just reflecting back on what it is, and then I can type more. When I end the reflection, and we are putting that button into the right corner, that is one of the last things I think that we still want to get into the release, is that you now have the chance to, as a learner who engaged with a chatbot, to receive the whole chat log and then end the reflection so that everything is being erased from screen, or you can have a summary sent to you so that the bot summarizes the conversation and takes out the most salient points, or you can just end the reflection without getting anything. So that is something to play with if you can, from the legal standpoint, in order to see if that would help your learners with reflection, instead of giving them, for example, 3 or 5 reflective questions up front. With RIF, there is a progression directly there that can be used. Now there are two more new features that I would like to show you. And so one of them is in regards to design. And we have built-in themes in Mahara. But what we have also heard over a couple of years or so is that some people would like to have a dark theme available or a dark mode so that the background is dark and the font is light. That has been implemented now for two themes, the raw theme and the default theme, because it turns out it's actually quite a lot of changes and rethinking that needs to go on in order to make it happen. If you generally have your device set to display everything that can be displayed in dark mode, you would already see potentially your Mahara site in dark mode if you work with the raw theme or the default theme. Otherwise, you can change the setting in your browser, and immediately, without any configuration changes, Mahara is displayed in dark mode with dark background and then light font, and looks very different. So for the time being, we have implemented that only for raw and default, because there are so many changes to make and so many things also to rethink, color contrast wise, that it works in dark mode as well as in the regular light mode, that we've wanted to roll it out incrementally and first also get feedback on this implementation here. But if you're building your theme on top of raw or default, you will have dark mode possibilities enabled, and you could also enable it for other themes, but just need to be aware that you might want to make some more adjustments in order for dark mode to display really correctly. Because there's a lot of changes, especially color contrast wise. Things need to be darker in order to show light icons and so on. So it's been an interesting journey providing that mode and also making sure that, of course, also all the logos are switched automatically, and then also that it works with the pages. So if we're going into the CPD plugin, for example, that all the links work, that everything looks as expected. And one final feature is more of an administrative one, and that is that it can happen that your learners or your staff might encounter a bug in the system. And let me demonstrate that to you by putting one into Mahara deliberately so that we can see what happens. So in this case, if I now click on a link, there I get the general bug message: a non-recoverable error occurred. This probably means you have encountered a bug in the system. In the past, your students needed to send you an email, and then you needed to scour the error log in order to find what might have happened. We've made this much easier now, because now students can just click a Report This Issue button and then write down the steps that they had taken before encountering this problem. And they can notify the administrator. So the prerequisite for this button to show up is that at least one site administrator has their notification settings set to receive issue reports. So that is a new notification type that we've created for those issue reports. Per default, this is set to none for everybody, so that it is a deliberate choice for administrators to say that they want to receive those. So that way you can limit which administrators receive these issue reports. For example, if you have a technical admin who looks after those, that they are the only ones. If you have a multi-tenanted Mahara site, you can also, notification settings. You can also decide whether institution administrators should receive those issue reports. So if you have multiple universities, for example, on your site, so that it's not just the site administrator, but rather institution administrators who receive reports in order to decide whether they want some assistance with the problem or not. And so now that the issue report had been sent, I can go into my inbox and see that I've received an issue report from Paula. And that issue report contains the steps that she had taken if she's provided that information, and also the error message, so that I can then take a look at that, forward it to a developer, or also potentially report it in the Mahara forums if that is a problem that you can't fix. But if you do report problems to us in the community, please do make sure to remove any confidential information that you don't want to have displayed. The issue reports are numbered, and that just corresponds to the number of the row in the database, so that it is easier for administrators to see in their inbox which issue report they have. And the administrator can also reply to the issue report in order to get more information from the student. So that is a new way of more easily reporting issues and then also forwarding them to us. So those were the new features that I wanted to share with you today. And as usual, they are also documented in the Mahara manual. There are still a few that I need to finish documenting, but for the two features of smart evidence and also retrieving deleted text, there are a couple of videos available for which I have put the link into the shared notes for you so that you have quick access to them. And as subscribers, you have access to this release through our subscriber portal, the issue tracker. Let me show that to you where it is. And I'm in the wrong window. Let me do that here. So if you go into the subscriber portal, the git.mahara.org site, you will have access to our repository, and some of you might not see all the things that I have here on the left-hand side. So if you said that you don't really engage with code, then you won't see some of those options there. You always have access to the issues and can therefore also converse and discuss with us how some of the new things might be implemented. And if you are looking for the code itself, then you have it available here via Git, and you can pull it down to your computer, run Composer, and then also make CSS in order to compile the theme and also all third-party plugins. If you typically work with the zip files that were on Launchpad, do not use the option here by clicking on code in the repository and then downloading the source code. The source code does not give you the compiled code. So you won't have third-party plugins included and you won't have the themes compiled. So please be mindful, if you're working with zip files, not to use that button, but instead go to Deploy, Releases, where you will find the compiled code. And so the important ones are the ones at the bottom. So in this case, because we haven't released Mahara 24.04 yet, you don't see the stable version. But once the stable version is there, you will be able to see those files. At the top, you have, what you have under Assets is again just the source code. So ignore those. They are being added automatically. Use the files that are below, either the zip files or the tar.gz, in order to download the code. So you still have both options available of working with the Git repository or also downloading the code. And especially if you download the code, please make sure to follow the upgrade instructions that we have in the wiki. So we've moved the wiki from wiki.mahara.org over also directly here into our Git instance so that you have direct access and don't need to move between sites. And so when you go to the wiki, you find information about the upgrade directly on the wiki's homepage and can therefore read all the information. So the important thing if you're working with zip files is replace the old code with the new code so that you read this section carefully. And so now we have still a few minutes time to look into any questions that you may have, or I'm happy to show you some of the features again or go over some of them, explain some more or answer any other questions you have. And of course, I also look forward to hearing from you of how you want to use some of those features, or once you have Mahara 24.04 installed, how you are using them, giving us some feedback on them so that we can take that into consideration when enhancing functionalities in the future. So thank you so much for coming along today, and let's go into the Q&A.